My name is Madeline Cooper, and for 28 years I lived like a shadow. A shadow of a fragile little sister who always managed to fall apart the moment I was about to be happy. That wedding day wasn't mine, but for the first time in years, I held the microphone amid the applause of the entire reception hall. I hadn't even finished smiling when Jenna, my younger sister, suddenly collapsed in the middle of the aisle. Every eye instantly turned from me to the usual victim. But this time, I didn't rush to catch her. I took out my phone and hit play. Have you ever had a family member use illness or weakness to steal every meaningful moment in your life? If you've ever felt like the quiet one who endures, leave a comment. Like the video, subscribe to the channel to hear what happened next. Because that day, I was no longer a spectator. I was the one who brought the truth to light. I grew up in a small house in the suburbs of Tacoma, where everything always revolved around my sister Jenna's health. She was born 2 months premature, with weak lungs and an almost non-functional immune system. In the early years, the quiet hum of a ventilator was like part of the family, and me, I was the healthy, easy, understanding older sister. I learned how to stay silent early on. When I wanted Mom to read with me, she said Jenna needed to sleep early. When I got my first A, my stepdad nodded and praised me, but still rushed out because Jenna had a mild fever. I once asked my mom, "Mom, can I be sick too, just once?" She frowned, voice gentle but firm. "You don't need to earn love that way, Madeline. You're strong." And from that day on, I set my own alarms, packed my own lunches, and learned to open books even when no one was watching. Jenna grew up wrapped in protection, as if she were made of glass. And to be fair, when she was little, it made sense. I used to be terrified of losing her. She once turned blue during a severe coughing fit on a winter night, and I ran across the street banging on a neighbor's door for a ride to the hospital. My parents weren't answering the phone. When she recovered, Mom held her close, sobbing, then turned to me and said, "Thank you. But you don't need to tell anyone about this. People might think you're showing off." I didn't say a word. I was used to it. When Jenna turned 12, her doctor declared she was completely healthy. No more daily meds, no more constant monitoring. The whole family threw a party. I remember hoping, naively, that maybe, just maybe, my life would finally get lighter. That I'd stop being Jenna the patient sister and just be me. I was wrong. Jenna discovered something unsettling. Weakness, real or not, brought privilege. She first tested it in 7th grade. After a math test, she claimed she had a splitting headache. Mom let her skip the rest of the day. Meanwhile, I still had to read 3 literature chapters and turn in my essay on time. I saw Jenna smiling, hugging an ice pack while Mom brought her ice cream. And then it kept happening. Headaches, stomach aches, knee pain, shortness of breath, all conveniently timed before my milestones. The day of my high school project presentation, the day of my state scholarship exam, my 17th birthday party, the one I'd dreamed about for a whole year. I tried to speak up once. I said to my stepdad, "I think Jenna might be exaggerating a bit. Maybe she's not really..." He cut me off immediately. "Madeline, your sister almost died. Never doubt her pain. You should be ashamed." I wasn't ashamed. I was alone. Every time Jenna got sick, I was expected to cancel my plans. Field trips, concerts, even the time I got invited to the movies with my close friends. "You're her sister, you have to be responsible," Mom would say, asking me to stay home and watch Jenna. Meanwhile, she was on her iPad, ordering pizza. "But you said she had a fever." "She can still enjoy light activities. Not everyone who's sick lies in bed like in the movies." As she got older, Jenna became more cunning. She didn't just get sick at the right time. She knew how to play the pitiful role in front of adults. When I won a statewide writing award, Jenna fainted at the ceremony and had to be carried out. I stood on stage, staring at the empty chairs where my parents had once sat. Back in the car, Jenna was wrapped in a blanket, Mom clung to her, and my stepdad asked, "Do you want something to eat? I'll take you." No one asked if I had enjoyed the ceremony. Whenever I pushed back, Jenna cried, "You really think I'm faking? Haven't I suffered enough?" And Mom would scold me, "Madeline, are you jealous of the attention your sister's getting? You should be ashamed of that." That line followed me throughout my teenage years. Jealous, insensitive, cold-hearted. They didn't call me Madeline. They called me the labels Jenna had carefully planted in everyone's minds. I didn't want pity. I wanted to be seen. But to them, I was still the strong sister, the one who should know better, the one expected to sacrifice. And Jenna, the once fragile little girl, had grown into a master emotional manipulator, wielding her unnamed illness as the most powerful weapon I'd ever seen. But I wasn't that 14-year-old anymore, believing that justice would come if I tried harder. This time, I had a plan. I had evidence. And I was going to show my entire family, the one who stays silent isn't always the one at fault. I met Derek Chase on a March afternoon when he came to our office to pitch a biotech AI project our company was sponsoring for PR. He wasn't the type who instantly drew you in. He spoke slowly, pursed his lips when thinking, and always carried an old gray thermos. But something in his eyes made me feel genuinely heard. We started with small talk while waiting for the elevator, then weekend coffee dates, and before I knew it, Derek had become the most important part of my responsibility-filled life. With Derek, I wasn't the strong sister or the well-behaved one. I was Madeline, the woman with a loud laugh, a dream of opening a podcast studio, and a love for soft-boiled eggs on toast. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was sharing life with someone. I was living mine. Derek never said anything bad about Jenna, but I could tell he was a little uneasy every time she showed up. Jenna was great at playing the poor little sister role. She never openly objected to me, but every time Derek visited, she coincidentally had a headache or would walk into the living room forgetting to wear a jacket, then ask to rest for a bit because she felt dizzy. I used to laugh it off because I trusted Derek, because I believed I deserved a love that no one could hijack. Until that morning, I was preparing materials for a major meeting when I got a message from Derek. "I need to talk. Meet me at the cafe on Main Street at 11. When I arrived, Derek was already seated, eyes darkened like something was burning inside. No familiar hug, no smile, just a nod, and his phone sliding across the table. On the screen was a message thread under my name. Its content chilled me to the bone. That girl faked sickness her whole life and people still pity her. I wish she'd die so we could all breathe. I'm so tired of pretending to care about that trash. The writing style, punctuation, word choice, everything matched how I write. Even the way I use italics for emotion. I froze. "Derek, I didn't write that, I swear." He said nothing at first. Just studied me for a long moment, as if weighing how much of my truth still mattered. "Madeline, if someone sent those words about you, could you forgive them?" he asked. "You really think I could write something like that about Jenna?" He stayed silent. "I know you get upset with Jenna sometimes. I've even thought maybe you should be firmer, but I would never write something so cruel. I don't even know where those words came from. That's what makes it scary, because I don't know what to believe anymore." I watched Derek stand up, leaving behind his untouched coffee, and a hollow space nothing could fill. 2 weeks later, Jenna posted a photo strolling through the park, arm in arm with someone, his face cropped halfway. 3 days after that, a friend sent me a picture from a charity event. Jenna and Derek sitting side by side, laughing like it was the most natural thing in the world. I texted her. Jenna replied 10 minutes later. "I'm sorry, sis. I didn't think it would go this far. I just wanted Derek to see you're not as perfect as everyone thinks." I don't know how long I sat on the sofa that day. I only remember the light from the windows shifting, from white to gray, then into darkness. I lost Derek, but I lost more than that. I lost my faith in the goodness I had fought so hard to believe in. In the following weeks, I moved through life like an empty shell. I showed up at work, but couldn't focus. Every time I saw a couple on the street, my chest twisted painfully. I used to think I was strong enough to get through anything, but when someone deliberately targets the most vulnerable part of you, even strength begins to feel fragile. I submitted a leave of absence. On the form, I wrote, "Personal emotional hardship." But if there'd been an option for systematic emotional sabotage by a family member, I would have checked it in a heartbeat. It was the first time I didn't feel abandoned. I felt replaced, and the one who replaced me was the very person I'd spent my childhood protecting. I don't know how Jenna forged the messages, but I knew one thing. It wasn't accidental. It never was. And that was the moment I realized if I kept staying silent, she would keep going. Not destroying me, but anyone who dared to stand beside me. Jenna was hospitalized for the 3rd time in 2 years with a suspected appendicitis on a Saturday afternoon. My mother called, sobbing, saying the doctors hadn't confirmed anything yet, but Jenna was in terrible pain, and she'd forgotten to bring her insurance and some important documents. I didn't hesitate. Even with my heart already cold, I drove back to the old house to help Mom find the insurance papers and medical records. The house was emptier than I remembered. Family photos hung crooked on the walls. The dining table still showed traces of an unfinished breakfast. The smell of disinfectant mingled with lavender candles drifted faintly from Jenna's room, trying to mask the heavy air. I found the document bag in the bottom drawer of the living room bookshelf, but instead of leaving right away, I paused in front of Jenna's room. The door was slightly ajar. I don't know what made me walk in. Instinct, suspicion, or the exhaustion that had built over the years. Everything in the room was neatly arranged to the point of discomfort. Perfectly placed pillows, pastel notebooks stacked in rows, and on the vanity, the familiar pearl pink jewelry box. I had never opened it before. In my memory, it was untouchable. Jenna once screamed just because I accidentally bumped it while cleaning in high school. But this time, I lifted the lid. Beneath the plastic bracelets, old lipsticks, and scattered hair clips, I found a small black notebook. No label, no name, but thick, with pages slightly wrinkled, like they'd been opened hundreds of times. I sat down at the edge of the bed. My hands trembled as I turned the first page. Emotional strategy, version 2.1. I read quietly, each line clawing at my memory. May 3rd. When Madeline receives her award, apply mild stomach pain tactic. Mom responded within 3 minutes, left her seat. Effectiveness 8/10. Note, add tears next time. June 14th. Used dizziness plus blurred vision to avoid attending Derek's friend's birthday. Madeline reacted coldly, must alert Mom beforehand to increase impact. I thought I'd feel rage, but all I felt was cold. A cold that spread from my spine through every nerve like someone had poured a bucket of ice water into my memory. Mom reacts best when I clutch my head plus a tightness in the temples. Stepdad most responsive to stomach pain plus not eating. Madeline is weak to emotional cues only when others notice first. Optimal timing for illness, after 7:30 p.m. when people are gathered, or before crowded events. Avoid Mondays. Seems suspicious. I don't remember how many pages I flipped through. Each one was a stab, a list of roles, evaluations of effectiveness, emotional reaction charts for each stage of the symptom. There was even a timeline, a kind of tactical map with 3 colored pens, marking when to get sick, who would be present, and predictions on how quickly attention would shift from me to Jenna. And then I saw a note marked in red. Derek is a threat, must be eliminated. If he sees Madeline as trustworthy, all strategies fail. Suggest. Use Madeline's writing style for message. Send via anonymous app. My vision blurred. I had to close the notebook and take a deep breath. She wasn't just faking illness. She was orchestrating it, monitoring, calculating, documenting, evaluating like a trained behavioral psychologist. And I, the one who shared her home, ate dinner with her, held her when she cried, was nothing more than a supporting character in her performance. I looked around the room again, Polaroids of Jenna and friends beaming with joy. A photo frame beside the bed held an old picture of me and Jenna, standing in front of our house with 2 melting popsicles. I was smiling, so was she. But now, I didn't know what was real anymore. I picked up the notebook, pulled out my phone, and took pictures of every page. I didn't know exactly what I planned to do. Maybe I still hoped it was all some twisted way of coping, that Jenna had written it as a way to vent. But then I saw the final folded paper, tucked into the back cover. Scenario A. If discovered, perform deep emotional hurt. Emphasize childhood pressure. Shift narrative to early trauma to redirect. Avoid long silences, can raise suspicion. Gosh. I sat still for a long time, then gently placed the notebook back. I couldn't take it with me. Because if I did, I knew Jenna would know. I left the room, locked the door as it was, and walked out of that house as a different person. A Madeline who no longer doubted, no longer questioned, no longer made excuses for the girl who had spent her entire youth destroying every piece of the life I built. I didn't go to the hospital that afternoon. When Mom texted that Jenna was still waiting for results, I replied simply, "Hope she's okay." It was the first time in years I didn't rush over. Didn't bring soup, didn't sit and rub her hands, didn't absorb the pitying stares from the rest of the family. I stayed home, laptop open with 2 windows. On one side, photos from the emotional diary. On the other, a fresh Excel file. Bold header. State. My event. Jenna's symptom, outcome. I started filling it from memory. Every time Jenna had a headache on the day I was invited to speak at the university. The high fever that cut our family camping trip short on my 19th birthday. The night she passed out, just as I received an offer to host a new podcast. Not everyone remembers details, but I do, because every interruption left a scar. I didn't confront her. I planned. I turned on my phone's camera before our next family gathering. My stepdad's birthday. I knew Jenna would coincidentally feel dizzy when I was invited to speak. I placed the phone in my jacket pocket, camera facing out, and spoke clearly. Saturday, 5:30 p.m. Today is Frank Matthews' birthday. Prediction: Jenna will show symptoms within 15 minutes after I start speaking. Exactly 12 minutes later, she began squinting, pressed her hand to her forehead, tilted slightly, and said to Mom, "I think I need to lie down for a bit." I didn't need to prove anything in that moment, just document it. 3 months later, I had 17 video clips, 11 audio recordings, and 34 rows of cross-reference data on an Excel sheet, all showing the same pattern. Jenna never displayed symptoms unless there was someone to notice. The pain never came in the mornings, during weekdays, or when she was alone. I knew that for my family, data alone wouldn't be enough. They needed something more emotional, more visible, undeniable. I remembered Derek. And the breakup message, the one written exactly like I would write. Back then, I had doubted myself, wondering if maybe I'd written it in a fit of rage, even though I had no memory of ever doing so. I reached out to an old college friend, Eli, a cybersecurity specialist who used to work for a mobile data recovery firm. I sent him Jenna's old phone, the one I knew she'd used before switching to a new device. "Is this illegal?" I asked him directly. "If she's your biological sister and she threw it away, then no," he shrugged. "I need to know if my sister sent a fake message pretending to be me to my ex." Eli nodded, his tone turning serious. "Give me 3 days." 3 days later, he sent me a zip file. It contained data recovered from several hidden messaging apps, including one that specialized in sending anonymous texts disguised under contact names. The extracted texts followed my exact writing patterns. There were even unsent drafts, messages Jenna had written and then corrected before sending. On top of that, there were screenshots of her conversations with close friends where she discussed how to frame my sister realistically. One message read, "I'm practicing how to write like her. She always uses phrases like, logically speaking, or, to be honest, in her messages. I'll throw some of those in so Derek won't suspect." I read every line, every word, chilled to the bone. I saved everything onto a separate hard drive, renamed each file by date and phase, set the passcode to the date I broke up with Derek. During that time, Jenna had no clue. She was still sick, still lying on the couch every time I visited home, still sending sick cat stickers in the family group chat, still making my mom sigh. "I wonder when your sister will finally stop suffering like this." I stayed silent. I no longer needed blame, arguments, or explanations. Because I had something Jenna never thought I possessed: the patience to dismantle an entire system built to protect her. And when the truth is big enough, full enough, it doesn't need a defender. It speaks for itself. Jenna and Derek's engagement party was held at a vintage-style restaurant in downtown Tacoma, with tall wooden ceilings and soft yellow string lights that glowed like candlelight. The two stood in the center of the room beside a three-tiered white floral cake, receiving congratulations and warm hugs from friends and family. Jenna wore a champagne silk dress, her hair in soft waves, her smile perfectly gentle. So perfect, it was almost laughable. She once told me, when she was 15, that she hated silk because it looked so bland. But now, Jenna looked like she was born to wear it. I sat at one of the back tables, the one for the sister, not the future sister-in-law. Mom was up near the stage, clutching her wine glass, her eyes never leaving Jenna. Derek stood close to his bride-to-be, his hand resting lightly on her waist like it had always belonged there. My stomach was empty, but I didn't feel hungry. There was a strange quietness inside me, a kind of calm I'd never had at family events before, because this time, I hadn't come to celebrate. I came to end a performance. "If I could have everyone's attention for a moment," Jenna began, holding the microphone with both hands like a practiced MC. Her voice was soft, each word carefully chosen. "I just want to say thank you to those who've always stood by me, especially my sister Madeline." A soft light fell on me. I looked up, offering a faint smile. "You've always been the one who sacrificed for me, took care of me, even stepped back so I could stand in the spotlight. I know it wasn't always easy." She paused, trying to let her voice crack. The room fell silent, and for a second I genuinely wondered, could she possibly, just this once, be sincere? "I've always wished I could be like you, strong and independent. But I'm just a weak, sick girl. Lucky to have you." That last line was the final nudge. And that was when I moved. I walked to the tech table where the projector was connected to the couple's photo slideshow. "Excuse me," I said, calm to the point of frost. "Could I have a few minutes?" The technician hesitated, but I held up a USB drive. "I'm the bride's sister. We've got a short surprise presentation for the family." He wavered, then nodded. The big screen behind Jenna flickered to life. "Jenna, what are you doing?" Derek whispered in her ear. But Jenna didn't turn around. Her body tensed. The microphone was still in her hand, but her lips stopped moving. On screen appeared Jenna. Not the silk dress Jenna, but the hood-wearing Jenna in her bedroom, phone propped on a pillow. Her voice rang out from the video. "Okay?" Eyes tilted up slightly, lips pressed together. "Don't groan too loud, it'll seem fake. Shake the left hand a little bit." The room held its breath. Again. "Mom, I feel pain." She tried again, this time softer, with a slight quiver. Then she adjusted the camera for a better angle. Below the screen, I heard the faint clatter of utensils, someone dropping a glass. Then came the audio clip, loud and clear from the speakers. If I don't fake being sick, how else can I steal the spotlight? I've got nothing on her except this. And it works. Every time she laughs, I just need to wince a little and the whole family turns. It was Jenna's voice. I felt the air shift. My mother gasped softly. Derek whispered, "Oh my God." The screen went black. I pulled the USB out. No one moved. Jenna stood like a statue, her face drained of expression. The microphone still in her hand, but no words came. I walked back to my table and took a sip of water. No one stopped me. A voice rang out. "Jenna? What is this?" It was my mother. And Jenna, the girl who always knew how to cry on cue, remained still, as if this time she couldn't find a new role fast enough. The air in the room thickened. Every eye was still on Jenna, but this time they didn't look concerned or sympathetic. They looked sharp, heavy, like 100 invisible hooks pressing into her skin. Jenna remained frozen, but tears finally started falling, not the quiet, graceful kind she used when fishing for sympathy. These were jagged sobs, uncontrolled. Her hands trembled as she let go of the mic, her voice cracking into the silence that demanded an answer. I never meant to hurt anyone. I didn't know how to stop. Since I was little, everyone only saw me as the sick one. I had nothing else to hold on to. My mother let out a quiet sob, lips pressed tightly together. "So you're admitting you've been faking your illnesses all this time?" she asked, her voice trembling, though she tried to keep her breathing steady. "Partly. Not all of it. There were times I really felt tired, really dizzy. I'm not superhuman. I've lived in Madeline's shadow for so many years. She's always been admired. No one understands what that pressure is like. Don't pull me into this performance, Jenna. You don't get to blame pressure when you're the one who wrote the script." "I didn't write it." Jenna turned to me, eyes glossy but no longer harmless. "I was just trying to survive, and Derek knew too." That line hit like a spear, not aimed at me, but at the man who had been standing quietly in the back since the party began. I turned to Derek. "Right, you've been silent long enough." He flinched, trying to keep his composure. Hands behind his back, eyes fixed on me. "Madeline, I didn't know it had gone that far." I was genuinely shocked seeing that video. I stepped forward. "Didn't know it went that far? Or knew just enough to benefit?" He frowned. "What are you implying?" I pulled my phone from my purse, opened the photo of the journal page I'd saved. I had printed this part separately just in case. September 12th. Derek said if I helped him save his startup, he'd marry me, as long as I kept her out of the way. I read aloud, slowly and clearly, eyes locked on him. "Her here is me. Startup is the company you were fundraising for, right?" Derek took a deep breath, his gaze shifting from uneasy to panicked. "Jenna made that up. You know she has psychological issues." I stayed calm. Psychological issues, yet sharp enough to log every conversation like a military operation. She even wrote down exact dates, remembered your words. I can't get caught in a family scandal, not when investors are vetting backgrounds. "Do you remember that?" Derek said nothing. A few people around the room started murmuring. A family friend near the door lowered their head and tapped something into their phone. Jenna now bowed her head, but didn't cry. She had lost control. The reins had slipped, and all the horses were galloping off in different directions. Derek stepped closer, voice low. "I didn't think it would go this far. At the time, I needed a reason to back out of things between us. You were too emotional. I didn't know what to do." I stepped back, looked him in the eye. "So you let my sister impersonate me. smear me to you, and you stood by like some innocent bystander? I paused, then said evenly, "You didn't hurt me. You empowered someone like Jenna with another weapon. You knew she wasn't stable, but you still let her drag me through the mud because the only thing you cared about was your damn startup." The room fell heavy with silence. Derek exhaled sharply, as if conceding. But he didn't say, "I'm sorry." I turned to my mother. "Mom, I know this isn't what you wanted to hear at an engagement party, but you once asked me why it's so hard for me to forgive Jenna. This is why. It's not because I'm jealous. It's not because I'm cold. It's, be- it's because I've lived too long in a world where kindness is treated like a weakness." My mother didn't say anything. Only her eyes trembled and her hands clenched tightly in her lap. I gave Derek one final glance. "You don't have to act anymore. No more pretending to be shocked or hurt. I'm not that woman in the cafe trying to explain a message I never sent." Derek lowered his head, and I knew, in that moment, whatever reputation he'd built with my family shattered, completely. And this time, no one could blame it on a mysterious illness. 1 week later, the house I grew up in was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Evenings of Jenna, stretched out on the couch, sighing about mysterious headaches, faded into silence. Mom no longer chuckled softly with her usual, "You girls should really share more." The performances had ended, and the audience was gone. My mother sat in the living room armchair, a shawl lightly draped over her shoulders despite the warm, early summer air. She stared out the window, toward the rusted swing set in the backyard that had never been replaced. I didn't know what she was thinking, but for the first time I saw her smaller. Not physically, but in the way she curled into herself, like she was trying to shrink away from a world that had cracked beneath her feet. My stepfather had packed his things and left 3 days after the party. He didn't say much, just left a note on the kitchen table. "Jenna needs time, but I'm out of patience." I didn't blame him. As for Jenna, she went silent for the first 4 days. I thought she'd come back with a new act, a new trick. But then, Thursday morning, I received a message. "I'm sorry, Madeline. I don't know how I became this way." Every word was carefully chosen. Humble enough not to seem arrogant, vague enough not to carry any specific accountability. I didn't reply right away. Honestly, I didn't know what there was to say. That evening, I sat at my computer, rewatching the videos I had recorded. Jenna's glances around the room, her whimpers timed perfectly with my name being mentioned, her clutching her stomach in the garden or at the dinner table. I didn't watch to relive the anger. I watched to remind myself this wasn't all in my head, that some wounds really do come from the people we love. I opened my phone and recorded a short video. No edits, no filters. I sat at the corner of the dining table in my small apartment, the kitchen light casting a soft glow on my bare face. I looked into the lens, my voice calm. "Jenna, you don't have to apologize. Not because I forgive you or don't forgive you, but because, honestly, you don't have to act anymore. Because no one is watching you anymore." I paused for a few seconds, then hit send. 3 minutes later, it showed read, no response. I didn't know if she was curled up in her old bedroom or had moved somewhere else. I didn't know if she felt remorse or was crafting a new excuse. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't there to be pulled in anymore. When someone lives for others' attention, the cruelest thing isn't to condemn them. It's to turn away and leave them alone with themselves. Sometimes, silence isn't forgiveness. Silence is simply release. I moved to Portland on a fall morning when the maple leaves had just started turning red along the gentle slopes of Hawthorne. The city was rainy but quiet. No familiar voice interrupting every time I tried to speak. No abrupt texts like, "Jenna needs you," right in the middle of my work schedule. For the first time in 28 years, I lived somewhere no one knew my past, and no one defined me by the sister I once had. My new apartment was on the 3rd floor of an old building overlooking the Willamette River. At night, I often opened the window, listening to the sound of flowing water mingled with the hum of streetcars below, and felt like I was finally touching a part of life I had never been allowed near. I began writing. At first, scattered notes, then they became a podcast script. I called it Silent Siblings, for brothers and sisters who were expected to fade into the background for the main character in their own home. Not everyone has a Jenna, but so many people know that feeling. Always pushed aside, always labeled too harsh, too insensitive. You should be more thoughtful. The first episode aired after 3 weeks of prep. I recorded it with a simple desktop mic, added a soft rain sound behind, and shared my own story, without names. I didn't say who Jenna was. I simply spoke of a sibling who always needed attention, and an older sister who was always told to understand. No promotions, no media push. But after 2 days, it had over 3,000 plays. After 1 week, I received more than 100 emails. I thought I was crazy, because no one ever believed me. I'm the sister between 2 brothers, and my whole life I've been labeled heartless. Thank you for putting into words what I've carried in silence for 30 years. Every week, I released a new episode. Sometimes I interviewed people who'd gone through the same thing. Sometimes I shared a small story, like the time I won first place in a statewide writing contest, but all my family talked about was how Jenna seemed unwell during the awards ceremony. Sometimes I simply read listener letters, slowly, like I was sitting beside someone who had waited their whole life to be heard. I didn't try to become a healing expert. I wasn't giving lessons. I was telling stories. And in the telling, I found myself again, the part buried under the role of the understanding sister. In my second month in Portland, I received an email from Mom. Same old address, B. Cooper 56 at... The subject line was simple. I read it. I opened the message in the morning while making coffee, hands still damp. That's when I read the entire journal, every page, the ones you sent and the ones Jenna left behind. I don't know what I missed. Maybe I was so busy trying to save one child, I didn't realize I was leaving the other alone in the dark. I'm sorry. Not because you need to hear it, but because I need to say it. I see your pain now, and I know I wasn't there when I should have been. I put the mug down and sank into a chair, tears falling before I could even think. Not because the letter changed everything, but because finally, someone said the one thing I'd longed to hear. Without excuses, without promises. I replied that night with a single line. You don't have to fix the past. Just stop denying it. After that, she didn't write much. But she started sending pictures. Of the backyard flowers, of the first rain in Tacoma, of the neighbor's dog Jenna used to hate for barking too much. Tiny images. But each one a quiet attempt to stitch back the thread between me and her. Not with words, but with presence. Gentle. Consistent. I don't know where our relationship is going, but I no longer feel responsible for fixing it. I can choose to love my mother in my own rhythm. Slowly, without pressure, without playing a role. One early spring afternoon, when cherry blossoms were starting to bloom along the Willamette, I received a thick envelope, sealed with a pale yellow stamp, the handwriting familiar and careful. Sender, Jenna Matthews. I didn't read it right away. I set it on the kitchen shelf, next to the sea salt and a half-read book. 3 days later, when a breeze blew through the curtains and I accidentally spilled tea on the table, the envelope fell to the floor, one corner damp. That's when I picked it up and opened it. Inside was a wedding invitation. Simple design, white background, gold lettering. Jenna was marrying a man named Travis Reed, a real estate businessman. The ceremony would be held in a greenhouse outside Seattle, with jasmine vines and an outdoor cocktail reception. At the bottom, a handwritten note. I know I don't have the right to expect anything, but if you come, it would mean more to me than you know. I placed the card on the table. Didn't tear it, didn't throw it away, but didn't need to read further. Truthfully, I felt peaceful. like I was looking at an old room through a window. Everything still in place, but no longer where I belonged. I didn't send a decline. I simply chose not to go. That night, at 9:12 p.m., my phone lit up. A message appeared on the lock screen. This time, I'm not pretending. I really need you. I stared at the screen for a few minutes. The message stayed there, waiting silently, like all the ones before. But I didn't open it. Didn't reply. I was no longer the one who rushed in when she needed. I set the phone down, muted it, and turned back toward the kitchen, where soft yellow light glinted off the wineglass I had just poured. Cabernet. Deep and dark, like this night. I brought the glass to my lips and sat by the window, legs curled on the hand-woven pillow I'd bought during a solo trip to Bend last month. Outside, it was drizzling. The raindrops fell like silver threads, tapping gently against the glass. I left the main light off. Only the table lamp glowed, soft and golden, casting enough warmth to catch my reflection in the window. I used to think healing a relationship meant talking it out, forgiving, reconnecting. But some wounds don't need bandages, they need to be left alone. I used to wonder, if Jenna truly changed, if she came to me without pretending, would I open my arms? I don't have a clear answer, but I know one thing for sure. I'm no longer the sister fading in the background. I'm not the quiet side character who silently absorbs everything anymore. I don't hate Jenna. I no longer carry that anger in my heart. But I also don't need to step back so someone else can step forward. I looked out. The rain slid softly across the city. The crowd thinned in the distance. A couple ran under the trees, holding hands. Traffic lights blinked red and amber. Nothing remarkable. Yet I felt at peace. I whispered, not to anyone in particular, like a private monologue. Not every pain needs a doctor. Some need the acting to stop. And in that silence, I closed my eyes. Not to escape, but to fully feel that I had stepped off the stage, a stage I was cast onto for a role that was never mine. Have you ever found yourself in my place? Where the people you love the most turn you into their shadow, just so they can shine? Have you ever been labeled too strong, too cold, simply because you didn't break down like others? I don't share this story to blame or defend. I share it to open a door, so that those who have been the silent sacrificers in their families might finally realize you are not alone. If this story reminded you of yourself or someone you care about, leave a comment below. I want to hear your voice. Whether you're a sister, a brother, or someone learning to stand again after playing a role that was never yours. And if these glimpses into family life resonate with you, hit follow. Because there are more stories to come. Journeys of letting go, facing truth, and finding ourselves again, waiting for you ahead.